Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we have some football to talk about today. We had some Monday night football action last night, and of course, today is Tuesday, so we've got some waivers to talk about. So, without further ado, why don't we sit back, relax, sip our coffee, and enjoy the show. Before we get to the waivers, I've got some news to talk about today. And the first and only story I'm going to talk about before we get into our top 10, or not top 10 takeaways, before we get into our Monday Night Football takeaways and then the waivers, is Justin Fields. This is a quote from him after the Chiefs game on Sunday. I'm looking at it like the big picture. Life in general, to be honest with you. I think this past week has had me kind of look at it like, what are the important things in life? Justin Fields becoming a philosopher upon sucking at football recently. I hope that doesn't mean he's just going to pull an Andrew Luck and just leave the game, finding football not important anymore. Don't want to read too much into it, but it's a weird quote to come from a guy who was so good last year and still has so much future ahead of him in this league if he can just get it right. It's a little weird to see him trying to focus on the little things right now, but we'll see how he goes and what happens with Justin Fields here. The important things in life are fantasy football, for all I'm concerned. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some Monday Night Football takeaways, and we'll start with the first game, and that was the Eagles Buccaneers. The first takeaway from this game is that Baker Mayfield is still Baker Mayfield. He finishes the day 15 of 25, a touchdown, an interception, and only 146 yards. Rachaad White doesn't look great as well. 14 carries for only 38 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 24 yards to help you get a little bit more fantasy points. But overall, the only person who looked good on the Buccaneers side of the ball was Mike Evans, who finished the day 5 of 60 and the only Buccaneers touchdown. Chris Godwin only had 3 receptions for 30 yards. Cade Otton only had 1 reception for 16 yards. Trey Palmer only had the 1 reception for 8 yards. So the Buccaneers had a very tough day against the Eagles yesterday. Hopefully they can bounce back. Currently, the NFC South is still tied between the Bucs, Saints, and Falcons. All 3 lost this weekend. So still up in the air, still battling. But Baker Mayfield, the big takeaway for him is that he's still Baker Mayfield. And for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is still Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts finishes the day with 28 rush yards and a rushing touchdown on top of 277 passing yards, a passing touchdown. And the weird part here, 2 interceptions. Hopefully he figures that out. The big takeaway, though, is that DeAndre Swift not only owns this backfield now, but is still really, really good at football. He finishes the day with 130 rush yards. He also has 28 receiving yards. He touched the ball 20 times compared to Kenneth Gainwell's 15. So Gainwell's still getting a ton of action, but Swift just looking so much better with what he's getting. And I think that this is going to turn into a 60-40, maybe even a 65-35 before too long. DeAndre Swift looking like the truth. And finally, we had the A.J. Brown game. No touchdown, but he finished with 131 yards off of 9 receptions, with Devontae Smith only getting 28 receiving yards in this game. So A.J. Brown now back to leading Devontae Smith in fantasy points for the season, in targets, in receptions, all of that right back into A.J. Brown's favor. Snap of a finger. And that's kind of the whole point here with the Eagles receiving. It's a 1A, 1B. Some weeks it's A.J. Brown. Some weeks it's Devontae Smith. I was hoping with the first 2 weeks that Devontae Smith would prove to be a bit more consistent this year. It is looking like it is not true. It is still going to kind of bounce back. He still has a little bit of a floor. Hopefully this is his floor. 4 receptions for 28 yards. That sounds about his floor. But yeah, A.J. Brown still the better one in terms of fantasy points and everything else. And the last thing about this game is that it finished in a scoregami, 25-11. The first time in NFL history that has been a score line. I'm a big scoregami guy, so it was cool to see that yesterday. And the next Monday Night Football game that happened was the Rams-Bengals, and this was a terrible football game up until the fourth quarter where the team finally came alive. Jamar Chase was the game plan in this with a banged-up Joe Burrow. They just wanted to keep giving Jamar Chase the ball. Jamar Chase finishes with 12 receptions for 141 yards. didn't get a touchdown. Joe Mixon was the one who got a touchdown. He had 65 rush yards and a touchdown, and also a reception for 5 yards. It was the Jamar Chase and the Joe Mixon game. And T. Higgins was back to being week 1 T. Higgins, really. He had eight targets, but finished with only 2 receptions for 21 yards. Something's wrong with T. Higgins right now. I've got to say it. Something is wrong with T. Higgins. I don't know what it is. I mean, it seems to be bleeding across the entire Bengals as Joe Burrow finishes the day with a near 50% completion rating, 260 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Just a weird game all around, and the Bengals still seem totally off, but it is looking like Jamar Chase is at least back. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford finished the day with 269 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Puka Nacua was the leading receiver with 72 yards off of 5 receptions, and he had a very normal stat line. And if it wasn't for a 40-yard catch at the end of the game, it would have been a pretty bad day for Puka Nacua. He only had 7 targets, which is not the greatest considering how much he had the first 2 weeks prior, but still clearly getting usage, still looking good. Tyler Higbee was right behind him with 71 yards, who also still looks to be, a focal point of this offense, at least the passing attack. Cooper Kupp returns in 2 weeks, though, so keep your eyes on it. And finally, Kyren Williams finishes the day with only 38 rush yards and 27 receiving yards. He had 7 targets also and only had 2 receptions off of those 7 targets. I really don't think Kyren Williams is the league winner that a lot of people are starting to peg him for. Is he a serviceable running back? Yes, but he's going to have a lot of games like this where the floor is right here. It's just not that much. So Kyren Williams, you might have missed a sell window, to be honest. To be completely honest. And finally, with this game, Joe Burrow, after the game, said that there were no setbacks with his strained calf, and he got through it okay. So Joe Burrow looking like he's going to continue to play, looking like he's fine. They have the Titans next week, so we'll watch practices and everything this week before we, know for sure. And before we get into the waivers, let me go ahead and check out your comments. And it looks like it is just... Yeah, Anthony says T. Higgins playing like he's the odd man out of the receiver room. That is true. And Ryan Volts asks, what about Tutu? Tutu looked good. And I've got to say, like I said week 1, I'm going to go back to it. Tutu Atwell finishes the day with 50 yards and a receiving touchdown. He also had 22 rush yards. I've got to say, when Cooper Kupp returns, I would not be surprised if Tutu Atwell was more relevant than Puka Nacua. Tutu Atwell's role, it will stay, and he'll still continue to get similar uses, maybe a few less targets, but still he's going to be the guy getting the deep shots and random stuff like that. So I do like Tutu Atwell. He's looking good and looking like a potential trade buy candidate, to be completely honest. All right, guys, those are the Monday Night Football takeaways. So before we get into the waivers, let's hear from our sponsor at Rival.
This episode is brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy, the coolest fantasy platform not enough people know about, but they will once I'm done, baby, because they're always innovating. They just rolled out seasonal leagues. We set them up for patrons, for our listeners, and they funded over $1,000 in payouts. That's what Rival's all about. They're always innovating. They already had the fantasy book where you can take overs and unders, stack them up, multiply your payout, but then they added challenges so you can set your own lines and put them out there for the community, and then you can browse the community's lines and say, hey, this guy's crazy, I'm going to take the other side. It's cool. And they have fantasy bingo. Rival Fantasy is reminding me how much fun I can have with fantasy football, and use that promo code PLAYER. The promo code is PLAYER. They give you a $100 instant deposit match plus $25 plus a free play. That promo code is PLAYER for up to $125 in deposit bonus and a free play. You can't beat it.
Guys, we're back. Go get Rival Fantasy. It's fantastic. Use that promo code. You'll get a free play. You'll get a deposit match. It's great. It's fun. It's Rival Fantasy. Guys, I have a clip for you. And this is honestly turning into a hot topic at Player Profiler. It's De'Von Achane. We're all worried about him because of his size. But, I mean, he's going to the Dolphins. That's amazing. You're talking about a team that last year had Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson destroying defenses. It's a great scheme, and De'Von Achane has a very similar profile to those guys, but better. So De'Von Achane is a guy I'm touching, man. That is an awful thing to say. That is a guy I'm drafting. De'Von Achane, I am drafting. I love it. His closest comparable on the website is Chris Johnson. Of course, that is a ceiling and a half. But
with that kind of profile on that offense, it is perfect. They have 3 of the same running backs on this team, and they're all going to produce. And to have a season ranking at RB35, that is value. This guy has the highest projected total yards out of anyone we've talked about today, 857. That's fantastic. So good for the Dolphins for getting him, or good for fantasy owners that are going to get him. I do think he's going to work out. Don't think he'll be Chris Johnson, but I do love the landing spot. He's going to fit that scheme perfectly, and he's going to get some amazing runs. It's just going to happen. Devon Achane, probably one of my personal biggest movers. I was scared of him because of the size, but if any team is going to be able to manage that, it's the Miami Dolphins. They did it last year. They'll do it again.
That clip was from this show. As you can tell, Wake and Take, May 1st, 2023, less than a week after the draft. I believe that was the Monday after the draft. I went on this show. I told you all to get Devon Achane and how good he was going to be. Love it. Love it. Love it. Because he, of course, if available, is this week's priority ad on waivers. If he's available, 100%. 99% maybe if you have to, leave a buck to have some funds, but I don't even care. Devon Achane is a true lottery ticket, a true league winner, and looking like just way too good. Really just looking way too good. So if he's still on your waivers, you've got, and I mean got, to get Devon Achane. Now, the actual waivers, he's not everywhere, especially, you guys listening to Player Profiler shows, you probably already had Devon Achane, or you're in a deeper league that somebody else already had him. So what are some players to target just in general? I've got a list for you guys. I've got deep guys. I've got stuff from the article coming out, or actually that just launched. Theo does his waiver article every week, and we're just going to talk about him. If I think you should pick him up, if you shouldn't, all that fun stuff. But before we get into it, first we have to talk about a couple things that I want you to take note of. It is now heading into week 4, which means bye weeks are right around the corner. So in week 5, that'll be the first time bye weeks are served. It'll be Cleveland, the Chargers, the Buccaneers, and the Seahawks. So look for some of those guys to be dropped next week, and perhaps maybe don't bid up on any of them this week. Perhaps wait for them to hit the waivers on bye, because it's definitely possible that a lot of these Browns, Chargers, Buccaneers, Seahawks hit the waivers. Start keeping an eye out. Like Jackson Smith and Jigba, if he has another bad week, could potentially be dropped in your redraft leagues while Seattle is on bye. For Cleveland, DPJ, Elijah Moore, maybe Jerome Ford if he has a stinker. Who knows? With the Chargers, maybe somebody gives up on Quentin Johnston or Joshua Palmer or something. So just look for some of these guys to hit the waivers next week. And as we talk about Joshua Palmer, maybe don't bid up too much for him, as the Chargers are on bye next week. He might become available. And also, I want you guys to take note of IR. There are some players that landed on the IR before the season, and they will be eligible to come off waivers after this week, meaning they will be one of the hottest additions on waivers next week. So some of those players are Jeff Wilson, Jelani Woods, Keaton Mitchell, and Jalen Guyton. And if you want to get a little cute, Jameson Williams as well, serving his 6-game suspension, that's right around the corner as well. But if Jeff Wilson or Jelani Woods are available in your league in particular, those are a little bit more standard, players that I'm, touting, saying that you should definitely pick up. We just saw what Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane did on the Dolphins. Jeff Wilson might be able to do the same, and you can go ahead and pick him up and just sneak him into your IR until he returns. And Jelani Woods, Anthony Richardson has been playing so well, and we've been seeing the tight ends on this Colts team get some plays drawn up for him. I think that it's possible Jelani Woods, with that athleticism, becomes one of Richardson's, go-to targets, especially as Michael Pittman continues to be the alpha wide receiver 1 out there. I think that the middle of the field will be a bit open for Jelani Woods and Josh Downs, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But Jelani Woods also worth to go ahead and pick up before he clears IR, before he gets activated. Go ahead and pick him up now. Put him onto your IR. That way you don't have to pick him up next week. Jalen Guyton for IR as well. This is more for your deeper leagues. Jalen Guyton is on IR. He's the speed of the Chargers offense. Now that Mike Williams is out, it's possible that Jalen Guyton becomes the deep threat here. Joshua Palmer's not fast, and Quentin Johnston doesn't like that kind of ADOT, isn't good with that kind of average depth of target. So Jalen Guyton, I do think, will be able to sneak into a role when he returns off IR. And Keaton Mitchell. As Gus Edwards battles this concussion, as Justice Hill picks up injuries, and as Melvin Gordon is extremely dusty, you have this undrafted rookie, Keaton Mitchell from Eastern Carolina, who is extremely quick and explosive. We could be seeing him by the end of the season do something special. Right now, he's on IR. You can go ahead and pick him up, sneak him into your IR slot, and just get ahead of the curve there. Those are like the IR stashes, the benches, just some fun little wrinkles to think about as you head into claiming your waivers. The players that I think you need to go ahead and pick up this week based on this week's performance and a couple other things. In Superflex leagues, I'm not going to talk about single quarterbacks. You know who to pick up. That's anyone that's available. That's good. You know how to manage a one quarterback waiver wire league. You've got it. You don't need me. But for Superflex leagues, I do think you should bid up for Jameis Winston. I think you should be throwing at least 15% at him because he's good for football. Good for fantasy football, bad for the Saints. He slings the ball. He's going to get points. He might turn it over, sure, but he's going to score touchdowns. He's got Chris Olave. He's got Rashid Shaheed. Jawan Johnson may be unlocked. Calvin Kamara returns this week as well. So Jameis Winston, I do believe, needs to be rostered in your Superflex leagues, and I would wager that he's startable. So I am not against spending a pretty penny to acquire Jameis Winston off waivers. We already talked about Devon Achane. That's 100% fab. It all goes to Devon Achane. Nothing needs to be said. Tyjae Spears, he's starting to outsnap Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is getting a load management right now. So Tyjae Spears needs to be rostered before he has the breakout game. Go ahead and get him now. The breakout game is going to come, especially as they look to bench Ryan Tannehill. I think this offense could start to look a lot different with a new quarterback at the helm. Rico Dowdle, he needs to be picked up as well. He's the clear backup to Tony Pollard. He had a touchdown this week, so people are going to be looking at him a little bit more, but still, he needs to be rostered. He's a handcuff. And attached to a good offense. And he looked pretty decent as well. So Rico Dowdle definitely needs to be picked up. Not recommending a ton of fab there, probably like a 5% type thing, but still he needs to be rostered. Sean Tucker also needs to be rostered. He's not doing a lot. He's not looking great. And the Buccaneers offense isn't looking great either, but still he's getting touches. And if Rachaad White goes down, he's going to get a ton of volume. Sean Tucker can catch the ball and run the ball. So he's looking pretty decent. Jaleel McLaughlin, the rookie running back for the Broncos, is out-snapping Samaje Perine. So if something happens with Javonte Williams, then Jaleel McLaughlin is definitely going to be asked to step up for sure. Not worth a lot of money, probably just a buck bid, but still in your deeper leagues, especially go ahead and look for Jaleel McLaughlin. He's looking decent. And Trey Sermon, we talked about him on yesterday's show. Theo's been talking about him on Twitter. But as the IR, as we mentioned, we look to see if Jonathan Taylor returns, I would go ahead and stash Trey Sermon. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't get activated off IR and things still seem a little hectic, the Trey Sermon is a handcuff. And he looked okay at 3.4 yards per carry. And Zach Moss has never played a fully healthy season, never played more than 13 games. So there's going to be a time where Trey Sermon ends up being the running back. He needs to be rostered in your deeper leagues especially. Chris Brooks as well. This is the undrafted rookie on the Dolphins. He got 6 carries last week. Granted, it was game script. They were ahead so much, they wanted to give him some touches. But still, Chris Brooks in your extremely, extremely, extremely deep leagues can be picked up. I'm not against it at all. I think he'll end up having a game or two because we know the injury history with Jeff Wilson, with Raheem Mostert, and potentially with HN. So, go ahead and pick up Chris Brooks. Those are the running backs. For wide receiver, if he's still available, guys, you've got to get Tank Dell if he's still available. He's proven it at this point. We're 3 weeks in, and he's looking extremely consistent. He's the wide receiver 6 over the last 2 weeks, so he's looking fantastic. The Texans' offense is looking good. C.J. Stroud's looking good. So go get Tank Dell if he's still available. I would put in a ton of fab on Tank Dell, essentially. If he's still available, put in a ton. Also putting in a good bit for Marvin Mims. He is the Broncos' leading receiver so far off of only 7 receptions. He has almost 200 yards. He's looking fantastic. So you've got to make sure to get Marvin Mims. That's a 5 to 10% bid right there, maybe even more, to be honest, depending on your league. Go get Marvin Mims. Michael Wilson as well has continued to show snap share, but this week he actually flashed. He led the Cardinals in receiving this week, didn't have a touchdown, but still had the most yards, looking like he has earned himself a role. And when Kyler Murray returns, he's going to be even better. So go ahead and get Michael Wilson now. Again, this is a 5 to 10%er. Think that he'll be good. Definitely worth the bench space. Josh Downs, as we talked about yesterday, is looking to become something. He had 12 targets last week. That's a ton. Yes, it's a Gardner Minshew thing, but still, we saw the rookie to connection develop already with a couple teams this year. And we know that Josh Downs and Anthony Richardson this offseason were working together in the hotel parking lot, studying the playbook, running routes and stuff. I think that this Josh Downs, Anthony Richardson connection could continue to blossom. And so I want to pick up Josh Downs while I can, because off of those 12 targets, he only had like 5 receptions for 50 something yards. It wasn't a great performance, so people aren't looking at him yet. I think you can get Josh Downs for cheap, no more than 5%. And I'm doing it, putting the money on him. And then the Chargers wide receivers, of course. Mike Williams is out for the season, so you've got to go pick up Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer looking to be the wide receiver 2. And Quentin Johnston looking to be the wide receiver 3. I'm assuming Quentin Johnston will get some more gadget plays. I will say with both of these guys, if you want to get cute with it, I would probably maybe get more cute with Quentin Johnston. But if you want to get cute with it, you can maybe wait till next week. As mentioned, the Chargers are on bye next week. So it's possible if Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer disappoint this week that they just get sent right back to the waiver wire. We'll see, right? I mean, that's definitely possible in more than a few leagues. So I think you can maybe wait a little bit on Quentin, especially if he's still available, and just see what happens. But yeah, Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer, if you have the space, I would take the chance on them, see how they're utilized this week. Calvin Austin as well has finally been unlocked. He scored the touchdown this week. He got a ton of targets week 1, was utilized week 2, is clearly liked by the team as he's doing special team stuff as well. And he's got the low 4.3 speed. I think it was a 4.3 240, extremely fast, has a 95th percentile agility and burst score. So he's really good and looking like a true part of the Steelers offense. So you've got to go pick up Calvin Austin. Michael Gallup. This one I am less, excited about. It's taken him a lot of time to finally have a good performance, but he did that this week. However, my problem with Michael Gallup is I think that even if CeeDee Lamb goes down, that ceiling just isn't actually there, and you're never really going to feel comfortable starting him. So I might still leave Michael Gallup there and take a chance on one of the guys with a little bit more upside that we've been mentioning. Michael Gallup, though. Not picking him up really, but, maybe worth a couple bucks. See if you could get him, maybe some trade fodder or something. But either way, did perform well. Maybe here. I just don't see much ceiling there. So it's kind of looking like a bench clogger type pickup to me. Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave, both of these Packers players, I think need to be picked up. They're starting to look pretty good. Jaden Reed in particular is looking real solid. And I think with Christian Watson coming back, that'll actually help him a little bit in terms of a floor. We'll see. I mean, that's going to be a concern, but still, throw a couple bucks Jaden Reed's way. And I think Luke Musgrave will happen by the end of the year. If you need a tight end, go ahead and pick up Luke Musgrave. And Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is looking like the main Chiefs receiver. He's getting the most targets, getting the most usage, really, and looking to be the more prototypical wide receiver. So if Rashee Rice is still available, I would pick him up. Kind of like Michael Gallup, though, I just don't know if I'm going to be comfortable starting Rashee Rice, unless maybe I'm a Patrick Mahomes team and you want to flex him. But still, it's just the ball is spread around so much that it's hard to warrant starting a Rice, starting a Sky Moore. It's just a tough decision to make week in, week out. So it's fine passing on Rashee Rice. I'm not against it. And if the Panthers are available, DJ Chark and Adam Thielen, I think they're worth picking up. DJ Chark more if you're going to stream him. I'm not picking up DJ Chark if you don't plan to start him, but it's looking like Mingo might be out this week. He picked up a concussion. It's possible he plays. It's more likely wide receivers play off concussions than like quarterbacks, for example, but still pick up Chark, pick up Thielen. Both of them had some pretty decent games last week, Thielen in particular. If they're available, they look like every week starters, Adam Thielen, especially in your flex. And DJ Chark is probably a starter this week if Mingo is out. Donald Parham, I am doing it. I'm picking up Donald Parham mostly or really only in my deep leagues and especially my 2 tight end leagues and tight end premium leagues, but it's looking like he's the red zone threat. And with Mike Williams out, he's going to be the red zone threat. It's not going to be Palmer or Keenan, maybe Keenan if it's like a 7 to 10 yarder. But still, it's Donald Parham. He's the tallest guy on this offense. He's already got 3 touchdowns this year, I believe. And I think that's going to continue. So in your tight end premium leagues, your leagues where you are desperate for a tight end, maybe Donald Parham, I do genuinely think is worth the pickup and startable, to be honest. Obviously the floor is extremely low, But I mean, he's the touchdown getter on this offense. He gets them, he gets utilized, and he's there and he's doing it. So Donald Parham, I do want to pick up. And another tight end I'm picking up in my deeper leagues is Julian Hill. This is a Dolphins tight end, another undrafted rookie like Chris Brooks for them. Last week he played 57 snaps. He didn't get any targets, but Durham Smythe, the starting tight end, only had 21 snaps. Hill also ran 21 routes last week, and Julian Hill ran 21 routes, and Durham Smythe only ran 7. So it's looking like Julian Hill is starting to be the main tight end of this offense, and that is pretty good given what the Dolphins have been doing. So Julian Hill I am picking up. And finally, I have 2 more for you guys. Ronnie Bell needs to be picked up in your deeper leagues. He scored the touchdown. He was the 4th. No, I think he was actually 3rd among 49ers receivers on Thursday Night Football in snap share. He's going out there. He's a rookie. He was pretty decent at Michigan. And, he scored a touchdown, looking to continue to get usage. He was their leading receiver every single week in the preseason. So I'm picking up Ronnie Bell in my deeper leagues. I think it's definitely worth it. And Olamide Zaccheaus as well. Yes, he scored the touchdown last night, and you're chasing points there. But still, Quez Watkins has done nothing in his time with the Eagles, really. And Olamide Zaccheaus, while on the Falcons, was a pretty clutch receiver, seemed to know what he was doing, and is a good football player, plain and simple. So I think you can pick up Olamide Zaccheaus in your deeper leagues. And someone here asks, should I pick up Logan Thomas? Sure. I mean, if it's a 2 tight end premium league, you can definitely pick up Logan Thomas. Not really worried about it in the single tight end leagues unless, it's high scoring tight end. I don't know. I know he's looked decent in getting the usage so far, but I just don't really want the tight end on that offense right now, nor a guy like Logan Thomas who's continuously injured week in, week out. I'm just not really worried about Logan Thomas. Not really worried about it. But I mean, if you need the tight end help, you can probably start him and you'll be fine enough with it. I just think there's more upside out there. All right, guys, that'll do it. Do we have any questions? Would you trade Saquon for T. Higgins and Breece Hall? Yeah, I think I would. I think I would do that, especially if it's a dynasty league. I'm assuming it's a redraft looking at this, but still, I think either way I'm doing it. I do think Breece Hall bounces back at some point. Hopefully, we'll see. And T. Higgins hopefully also bounces back at some point. And both of those players have a decent ceiling. It's a tough call to make for sure. But yeah, I think I'm doing that one. I think I'm doing that one, Savage Chris. All right. That looks to be it. Oh, how do we feel about trading for Cup? Is it too risky for now? No, definitely try to trade for Cup. Definitely try to trade for Cup. I mean, the price is getting more expensive as he's going to return in 2 weeks, but still, you've got to trade for Cooper Kupp. He's fantastic, and I think he's going to be just as good when he returns. It's Cooper Kupp, and this Rams offense has looked pretty decent. Like Matthew Stafford, aside from last night, still kind of looking like Matthew Stafford. So yeah, I'm trading for Kupp for sure. Don't think it's risky at all. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. This was another fun episode of The Wake and Take. You guys were a fantastic audience yet again. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending my morning with y'all. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler YouTube and Facebook and the Instagram. Have a good one. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.